This happened back in October of 2013. I was 13 at the time. Me and my friends Michael and Henry were going trick or treating. At the time, we didn't know to go for the rich neighborhoods, so we were in a poor area. After about 4 hours, we had accumulated a ton of candy. It was probably 11:30. By this point, we were passing this run-down house with all the lights off when the front door opened and a head peeked out. He called us over, and as naive teenagers we went to him. He told us there was a scary haunted house he was running, and said we were too scared to do it. We didn't want to show our fear, so we happily agreed. We asked for the price and he said it was free. Once we walked in, things seemed sketchy. The house was super dark and we didn't see any scary decorations or actors. He told us the fun was in the basement. As we were walking down the stairs, I noticed a tripwire and told my friends and stepped over it. The guy noticed and said it was just a prop. Once we reached the bottom of the stairs, he shut the basement door. There was a long hallways with doors on each side. We heard screaming from one of the rooms and thought it was part of the haunted house. I was starting to get freaked out. He opened the door and we entered a dark room. Looking back, this was very stupid. Suddenly I felt a firm grip on my shoulder. I thought it was one of my friends, but what I saw horrified me. There were about 6 men armed with bats and knives in the room. Michael freaked out and tried to run. They grabbed him and he screamed as they took him to another room. Then one of the guys, who was bald, told me to shut up and he would let me live. He began tying me and Henry up. Henry was crying and I was barely holding it together. I was thinking about all of the good times I had in my life and how I was not ready to die. The bald guy asked me what my parents' phone number was, and when I told him, one of the other guys wrote it down. He then asked Henry and he said he didn't know. The bald guy asked Henry a few more times before kicking the wall and telling the other men to take Henry away. After they took Henry away, they slammed the door and left me alone in the darkness. After a few minutes, I heard Henry screaming loudly from farther into the basement. I was barely holding it together. Suddenly I heard Tun's footsteps stomping down the stairs and yelling. Then there was gunshots and screaming. It sounded like a war zone. After 15 minutes, the door of my room was kicked down and I was greeted with the sight of SWAT officers. They untied me and brought me outside. My mom was outside waiting for me and she was worried sick. She took me home before I could ask any questions. The next morning, the cops came to my house and told me everything. Apparently me and my friends were victims of human traffickers. They planned on using me for ransom and torturing and murdering Henry and Michael. Luckily, they were saved with minor injuries. There were 7 other kids who were lured into that basement. 9 traffickers were killed in the gunfight I heard, including the bald guy who tied me up. 3 of the traffickers, including the man who lured me into the house, received life in prison. It turns out that Henry had dialed 911 once he heard the scream and called them when they took Michael. I thank Henry for saving my life every day. I will never forget that day and still have a fear of Halloween.